Hello and welcome to another episode of Time About the Movies Flashback. Today we're flashing back to March 11th, 1988 with 5 films to look at, so let's not waste any more time. Let's go and jump right on into it. We'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend. That's Judge Reinhold and Fred Savage in the body switch comedy, Vice Versa.
Well, I wish I could too. Marshall Seymour and his son Charlie just got their wish. And each other's bodies. And being a kid never felt so good. Or seemed so right. You never told me you had to see my whole room, teacher. Judge Reinhold.
Are you alright?
Alright. Fred Savage. What? Vice Versa. 5, rated PG. Special advance preview Saturday at select theaters.
Upon returning from a buyer's trip abroad from the department store where he works at, you have a divorced executive played by Judge Reinhold who finds that he's in the possession of a strange ornament skull. He's looking after his 11-year-old son Charlie, played by Fred Savage, for a few days, and the skull has special powers, and when Marshall and Charlie simultaneously wish they were each other's age, they eventually switch bodies. Now Charlie must go to work, and Marshall must go to school. Charlie must also deal with Marshall's girlfriend Sam. Furthermore, a smuggling duo is in pursuit of the skull. This seems like a film we've seen done to death and talked about to death already, but the interesting thing about this is that this one's actually based off of a book of the same name by F. Anstey. It's actually the 4th adaptation of this storyline in particular, and it's actually one of the better body switch comedies that they've done. I mean, it's basically Freaky Friday, except it's the father and son now who's now getting the body switch, but it's honestly really is one of the better body switch comedies because they actually have a lot of good funny elements to it. They got 2 really good writers here, Dick Clement and Ian Lafreniere, who have written some decent films in the later years, like Flushed Away, Across the Universe. I mean, they've done some really good stuff here, and you know, it's a film that really you wouldn't expect it to be as good as it could be, but everything about the movie just works so well mostly because of the 2 leads. Judge Reinhold, I think, is very, very good in the movie. And Fred Savage, keep in mind, he was just starting off in the Wonder Years when this was coming out. I think the Wonder Years hadn't even premiered officially yet. It had its Super Bowl preview 2 months before, but I don't think it had like its main premiere at this point. So people were seeing a lot of people were still relatively new to what Fred Savage could be, and he really shows that he has a lot of charisma as a leading young actor that he would later show in the Wonder Years TV show. And here he works it very well here. Swoosie Kurtz is also in here, Jane Kaczmarek, Richard Kind, Jay Lynch has an early role in here, James Hong. I mean, there's a lot of good people involved in here. It's a really good movie. It's a film that really is well done. For a film that has been done to death so many times before, this is one of the better ones because they keep it simple. They got 2 really good leads who can really carry the movie on their own. And you really do believe Fred Savage could be in the body of Judge Reinhold and vice versa, Judge Reinhold in the body of Fred Savage. I mean, it makes a lot more sense in this particular case, and I think it works very well here. Not a great film overall, but certainly a lot better than some of the other body switch comedies of its type. I mean, it's like I said, it's a story we've seen done to death before, but it works because the better writing, the better casting, the 2 leads work off each other so well. It's a really damn good movie, and one that a lot of people probably don't really recognize as well, but it's one you should definitely check out if you haven't seen it. Vice Versa. So, with that said, let's move on to the next movie, and that is Masquerade.
The heiress.
We have too much money. He doesn't care about that.
The hustler. Would you like to have dinner sometime? The setup. I have a better idea. I think you perform. You got that? The murder. The game is over. Masquerade, rated R. Starts Friday. Check newspapers for a theater near you.
Written by a pre-Law and Order Dick Wolf, this film is about a recently orphaned millionairess played by Meg Tilly, who falls in love with a young yacht racing captain played by Rob Lowe, who isn't completely truthful with her about her past. And this is a film that at one point was originally going to be called Dying for Love, but Wolf decided to change the title because the studio thought that there was a lot of series of AIDS awareness condom ads playing on TV, equating making love with death. So they basically had to change the title from Dying for Love to Masquerade. And some people say this movie's an homage to Suspicion. A filmmaker actually in particular said this. But this is a film that it's one of those movies where Rob Lowe, like, people still didn't know if Rob Lowe could really branch out as a leading actor as a whole. He'd done, like, comedies up to this point, mostly with the Brat Pack and all that. But this, I think this was one of his early dramatic attempts, and in the film, I mean, he didn't do a bad job, but he just didn't do a good enough job to make me say, I could see where this guy's potential could be as an actor going forward. But, of course, he would later show that down the road, especially with the stuff like The West Wing, and the fact that he can do drama and comedy with Wayne's World and Tommy Boy. But in this, it felt like an early film where he was still trying to find his way. He's trying to figure out what's the right direction to go with his career. And the film itself isn't bad per se. It's pretty much a substandard movie in general. It's a thriller that you can kind of predict everything that's going to happen. It's not a movie that really does that much to impress you. It kind of is elevated a little bit because it has Dick Wolf behind as the writer behind it, so he can find a way to keep you invested even though you pretty much know how it's going to end. But the film as a whole is just mediocre at best. Nothing really too spectacular about it. Nothing too amazing. Just fine for what it is. Maybe for a one-time watch it's fine, but other than that, though, I have no real intention of ever watching this again, honestly. So that is Masquerade. Let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, Willem Dafoe and Gregory Hines in Off Limits.
Being a cop is tough. But being a cop in Saigon, 1968, is crazy. Gangsters, dopers, black marketeers. I love this town. Starting to wonder about you, my man. Willem Dafoe, Gregory Hines, Off Limits. Rated R. Starts Friday at theaters everywhere.
So in this movie, you have Willem Dafoe and Gregory Hines as these two Sergeant First Classes who are joint CID agents on duty in war-torn Saigon in 1968. When a prostitute is found murdered, they discover the prime suspects are highly ranked U.S. Army officers. As they investigate, they find that there has been a string of at least 6 murders in the last year, but the previous inquiry was shut down from higher-ups to the chain of command. Investigations lead them to the Colonel Dexter Armstrong, played by Scott Glenn, but Armstrong rules himself out of inquiries by committing suicide. With the help of a French nun, played by Amanda Pays, and their non-commissioned officer in charge, played by Fred Ward, they finally close in on their target. As their investigation leads them closer and closer to the murderer, they find that their lives are in danger. I've never seen this movie, honestly, and this is one of those films where you look at it, it's just like, well, Willem Dafoe, this is actually the second Vietnam War film he did after Platoon. I mean, this is a film where, on paper, it just kind of looks like a generic thriller, and Gregory Hines, again, kind of like with Rob Lowe, they really didn't know what to do with Gregory Hines. Was he more of a comedic actor? Could he do dramatic too? I mean, it was around that time when I don't think Hollywood really knew what to do with him in terms of, like, what's the best genre for him to go into. And he just kept doing these various movies. Sometimes it worked in comedy, sometimes it worked in drama, but he just never could find the right balance overall. And I don't know how good he does in this movie. Reviews for it were not that strong from what I see from it, so it's probably one I probably won't check out anytime soon, but it's got a decent cast to it. I mean, like I said, Dafoe, Hines, Ward, Pays, Glenn, David Allen Greer's in this, Keith David. So there is some decent talent on board here, but other than that, though, nothing really is making me look at this and say, I gotta check this one out. But came out this weekend, so might as well bring it up. So that is Off Limits. So let's go ahead and get to probably one of the best movies of the weekend, and that is Edward James Olmos and Lou Diamond Phillips in the school drama Stand and Deliver.
Edward James Olmos. Wake up this morning, no one. Lou Diamond Phillips. In a tough school, somebody had to take a stand. And someone did. Together, one teacher and one class proved to America they could stand and deliver. A true story. Rated PG. Starts Friday, March 18th at a theater near you.
So Edward James Olmos plays the school teacher who's a mathematics teacher in a school in a Hispanic neighborhood. Convinced that his students have potential, he adopts unconventional teaching methods, helping gang members and no-hopers pass the rigorous advanced placement exam in calculus. And if that plot sounds very familiar, it's literally the same plot they would use for Lombarda 2 years later. I'm not even kidding, it's literally the same thing where you think it's going to be a dance movie, but the end of the film is literally a competition for a math competition. Is it this movie or is it the other one I'm thinking of? I think it's the other one. No, it's definitely Lombarda, because it's literally, you think the movie is about the forbidden dance, but no, and that's going to be the part of the big climax at the end of Lombarda, but no, it's a math competition at the end of the movie, that's the big climax. I'm not even kidding. But in this film, it works because, you know, it's a film that, kind of like with Vice Versa, it's a film we've seen done to death so many times. The inspirational school teacher movie. But this is one of those ones where it does it so well because you really do like the characters involved here. Edward James Olmos and Lou Diamond Phillips are really good in the film. I mean, it's a film that plays it straight. It doesn't do it specifically just to get just to go for Oscar bait. I mean, it's a movie that literally delivers everything that it promises and then some, and gives you a really solid film that just keeps you invested in the end of how it's going to play out. It's a very good film, and it has a lot of great performances. It's earnest. It doesn't feel like it's manipulating you in any way, shape, or form. It's giving you everything you want and then some, and gives you something really strong and enjoyable to watch from it. It's a really good movie. I highly recommend it, mostly for the performances alone. Edward James Olmos, Lou Diamond Phillips, Andy Garcia is also in here, playing a good performance in here. It's a really damn good film. I highly recommend it. Definitely check this one out. Stand and Deliver. And so, with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our last movie, which is a very underrated little gem here, Where the Wind Blows.
Never commence the construction of the fallout shelter immediately. Now we must do the correct thing. Inner core or refuge looks quite cosy, doesn't it?
I hope those doors aren't marking the wallpaper, Jane. Not saying you've got to stay in that thing for 2 weeks.
Well, yes, dear. Ours not the reason why. Now we must do the correct thing. Look on the...
I think I said Where the Wind Blows. It's actually When the Wind Blows, but if this animation looks familiar, yes, this is done by the same people that did The Snowman. Except the director, who actually, believe it or not, his film he did before this was Battle Beyond the Stars, the Roger Corman produced Star Wars ripoff. What a way to go from that movie to this film right here, which, you know, this was around the time when you had all these different disaster movies about nuclear war, and here you go with a story about a rural English couple's attempt to survive a nearby nuclear attack and maintain a sense of normalcy in the subsequent fall-on nuclear winter. We have John Mills and Peggy Ashcroft as the two main characters. Roger Walters of Pink Floyd's doing the score for this. Like I said, this is done by the same people that did The Snowman. David Bowie does the theme song for this. I mean, good lord. So many different weird collaborations from people that have made various works before this that you may be familiar with, but they make a masterpiece out of this movie. This is a great, great movie from a visual perspective. The animation combined with, I guess, a little bit of live-action elements to it just works so well here. Like, you really feel like the animated characters are behind these backgrounds that are live-action, but it doesn't really feel that way. Plus, it's a heartfelt movie. It just depresses you in so many different ways, shape, and form, and you just feel so depressed after it. It's a film that is so... It really is a devastating film to watch. But this is back when movies like this were the norm. I mean, this was like back when 80s G meant 80. The G rating in the 1980s meant something. And this thing probably was rated G at the time, but this is something on the levels of something like Watership Down, Plague Dogs. I mean, these depressing animated movies, but they're so depressing, but they're so damn good in the visual perspective and the storytelling perspective. And this is definitely another one of those films that lives up to that caliber. It's a kind of an underrated gem. I don't ever hear a lot of people really talk about it all that much, but man, it's one you should definitely check out because it is deep, it is disturbing, but it's such a heart-wrenching, beautiful masterpiece of a disastrous-looking event. I mean, this is, I say that in a bad way, but that's literally what's happened to these people, a disastrous event, and you just hope that, and you're just hoping that something's going to come out of it where they're going to survive, and just like, nope. It's one of those ones that say life has no happy endings, and this is exactly what happens when life has no happy. This is definitely a life has no happy ending situation here, and just a great film, depressing as hell, but beautiful to look at from its animation and visual perspective. What more can I say? When the Wind Blows, just a phenomenal, underrated little gem that I highly recommend checking out if you've got the stomach for it, I should say. And so, with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies Flashback. We will flashback to March 4th, I believe, March 4th, 1988, with 3 films, including Richard Pryor in Moving. We also have Burt Reynolds, Kathleen Turner, and Christopher Reeve in Switching Channels. And we also have Rebecca De Mornay in At God Created Woman. We'll take a look at those 3 films on the next episode. But until then, thank you so much for watching. And if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. So, with that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.